There is a time for war and a time for peace. Nobody knew this better than the military generals who fought the wars that changed the history of entire nations and continents. Wars that maybe transformed our world into an alternate reality that may never have been possible but for those wars. The history of our planet is full of true stories about conflicts. Some of these stories are legends and myths that are not entirely true. In this video, I am going to show you a true story about a man of war and how he radically changed his generation. He was a war general of his time. I will have similar videos such as this coming soon about war generals. Why should you care to listen to these tales about war generals? You might learn a little something about yourself. At the end of this video, there is bonus material that shows you how the mind of each of these war generals worked. You may find a kindred spirit in one of them, someone that you can connect with. Today, I am going to talk about a war general from the ancient era. His name was Joshua. Joshua was a military general that may need no introduction in many circles of history. He was an Israelite who lived about 3,000 years ago, in 1200 BC, and was made popular by writings found in the book which we know today as the Bible. While many persons and cultures today do not believe the tales that are told in the Bible or the faith that it represents, it is confirmed through history that the man Joshua did in fact live as described in the pages of the Bible, and the accounts narrated about him show that he was the greatest military general of his generation in 1200 BC. His real name was originally Hoshea, which means salvation. It was later changed to Joshua, meaning the Lord is my salvation. He came from the tribe of Ephraim in Israel. He was born during a time when the people of Israel were slaves in Egypt. They desperately wanted to leave Egypt and become a people of their own, but they had no one to lead them. In those days, Israel was made up of 12 tribes. Think of a tribe as a large group of people that share the same customs or the same name. In Israel, each of the 12 tribes consisted of thousands of people. Joshua's grandfather, Elisham, was the prince of their tribe, so Joshua was more or less royalty. From a young age, Joshua began to demonstrate how different he was from the rest of the entire tribe. It is written that the God of Israel personally sent a man called Moses to Egypt to rescue the entire nation from their slave status under their Egyptian masters. Moses succeeded in bringing Israel out. Israel was set free. They marched out of the land of Egypt as a people of great numbers. Of course, Joshua marched along with his grandfather Elisham and his father Nun when the entire nation of Israel departed from Egypt after over 400 years of slavery. This would be a good time to talk about the psychology of a people who had been slaves for 4 centuries. It is not often talked about, but the reality is that they could not truly fend for themselves. Now, they found themselves traveling through deserts and foreign lands, and they did not know how to fight, how to feed themselves, or how to be independent. They were a free people, but continued to think like slaves. Moses, their first leader, had a hard time managing them. He had been raised as a prince in Egypt, due to a series of events that caused the princess of Egypt to adopt him as a son. I will talk about Moses and his character as a leader in another video. The heart of a prince. The point is, Moses was raised as a prince. Joshua, the grandson of Elisham, was raised like a prince, since his grandfather was the head of his tribe. You see, this seems to be one of the first points that made Joshua qualified to be the next leader of Israel. He was just like his master Moses. He did not think like a slave the way the rest of Israel did. He followed Moses around and seemed to have adopted leadership thinking very quickly, compared to the rest of the people, who often complained about not being able to fend for themselves now that they were a free people. A follower. Apart from adopting the mindset of a leader so early in his life, now that he was no longer a slave, Joshua had one character about him that made him the perfect future general of Israel. He was a follower. Contrary to popular belief that leaders are made by teaching them how to be leaders, a follower is someone who is able to imitate the footsteps of someone else, usually a leader, and they do it without feeling little about their current station in life. Unfortunately, not everyone can be a follower because it requires a strong dose of humility. Many of us have had leaders. We know how it can be when the boss is too, bossy. A good follower can take it all in their stride and still manage to impress the boss. It is better than kissing up to the boss. It is a mindset that is open to following someone else's ideas and maybe even learning something from it. This was who Joshua was. He followed Moses better than anyone else in all the camp of Israel. No wonder that it was said that the God of Israel himself was the one who personally chose Joshua to become the next leader of his people when Moses died. When a follower believes what their leader believes, they are a true follower who just may be on their way to becoming the next boss around the table, just like Joshua. Leaders see impossible possibilities. I mentioned in the previous point about Joshua being a follower that he believed the same things that his leader Moses believed in, even when others were in doubt about Moses' ability to lead them. He saw the possibilities of a new life for the entire nation of Israel. A leader is able to see the end of a matter, and from that end, they plan the next steps that they need to take to succeed. Joshua was known as the Israeli leader who led the people into crashing down the walls that surrounded the city of one of their enemies, the city of Jericho. The event occurred through supernatural phenomenon so that the people of that day and the science of today has not been able to explain. Joshua obeyed without question, and the walls of their enemy city came down. This illustrates that in the face of the impossible, a leader like Joshua was able to believe that there were possibilities and to get the job done. This is the mark of a true leader, mayhap a true war general. Bonus material. Before you go, here is that bonus material I promised. To have the character of a war general like Joshua, you will need something called tenacity. That's right, tenacity. Tenacity is another word for strength. Throughout the book written about Joshua, the words "be strong" were repeated over and over again. The God of Israel had personally delivered the message to Joshua, and Joshua did not fail. In his demonstration of strength, he brought down the walls of Jericho, as mentioned earlier. He succeeded in getting the people of Israel across the river Jordan and closer to their final land of settlement, and his name was feared throughout all the known nations of that day, so that anytime Joshua's army was passing through any region, the people in those districts became terrified. Strength comes from having a belief in something and remaining unshaken from it to the very end. Joshua believed that Israel would become a nation with their own land, and he held on to the strength that he had been told never to neglect. Do you consider yourself a war general character? Or maybe you have the heart of a prince or princess? You are a good follower, you see possibilities in the impossible, and you probably are stronger than you give yourself credit for? Drop a comment to declare whether you are a fighter who is ready to win at anything you set out to do. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up because it will help others to see it, and other videos like it which I will be sending your way coming soon. Subscribe to this channel to see future videos like this. Till next time, keep on telling stories that will change the world.